Today's review is on the Family Guy episode Heartbreak Dog from season 16. In the episode, Bonnie, Joe, and the rest of their friends celebrate Bonnie's 46th birthday by watching home videos of their honeymoon. The first honeymoon was when Joe wasn't crippled, and Bonnie was very happy. Then they watched the 10th anniversary of their honeymoon after Joe ends up in a wheelchair while Bonnie is very unhappy. Bonnie is crying in her room, feeling that her life doesn't mean anything after all the years taking care of Joe. So Brian checks on and comforts her. "Thanks for being so nice to me, Brian," said Bonnie. Ooh, I like the way Bonnie said that. That sounds sexy. She got a sexy voice anyways. Bonnie enjoys Brian scratching behind her ear. Oh yeah, she knows she likes it. Brian tells her that she's a good girl and that everything was going to be fine. Then it's the usual touching moments where the characters look into each other's eyes. Yeah, we see this with Brian and Bonnie, leading them to kiss. Later, Brian tells Peter about the kiss. Peter promises not to tell anyone. If I was Brian, I would have not told Peter. He can't keep a secret since he's dumb. I'm sorry, retarded. That's like Mr. Gus telling Uncle Grandpa to promise not to tell his secret to anyone, but Uncle G is bound to do it since he's not very bright. I think he should have at least told Stewie. Stewie can keep a secret. It's game night and Peter told everyone. Brian apologized to Joe about what he did, feeling awful about it. Joe accepted his apology, but Joe still got revenge by tow trucking Brian's car, drugging him by spiking his drink, lastly having him wake up where he's struggling in shoes. Plus Joe uploads a video of it on the internet. I thought that was pretty funny and adorable seeing Brian struggle in those shoes. Brian's like, "How do you walk in these? Is these forever?" Meanwhile, Meg ends up being a volunteer at a retirement home. The principal chose the good jobs for the pretty and cooler students, and since Meg asked a question, and I guess the principal considered her the unattractive one, he gives her the bad job, pretty much judging her by her appearance. Why do people think Meg is unattractive? What, because the way she looks? That's bullshit. What about her personality? My God. Meg doesn't like the woman that she has to volunteer and take care of. I mean, I can't blame her. I mean, the woman even says that, sure, her name is Meg, but she thinks she's really a boy. Really? Meg is not ugly. Stop dogging Meg. Jeez. I think she's pretty and cute. So Meg starts stealing a brooch that belongs to the woman. And then she sends it to her friend, which is Adam West. Adam West is her friend. And he talking about slick brooch. And then his mom shows up out of nowhere. Adam West still lives with his mom? What the hell? Okay. He should be on his own, doing his own thing. Chris finds out and tells Meg it's no excuse for the way the woman treats her. Stealing is wrong, then he changes his mind when trying on someone else's glasses. Brian gets Peter, Lois, Cleveland, Quagmire, Joe, and Bonnie to convince Joe to finally give Brian a break. But things backfire when saying negative things about Brian and Bonnie. Peter brought up Brian trying to do Lois for years. And Quagmire wasn't doing the same thing? Don't forget about Quagmire. Speaking of Quagmire, he says that Brian's a dick, but the actual point is he sees Bonnie as a weird slut who lets the men know she's open for business. Bonnie's shocked and wants to know when she ever did it. And then Quagmire's like, "Oh, when do you not do it?" Then he mentions her boo boo baby voice and her breastfeeding rack. And I laughed out loud when he was all of a sudden, "Ooh, give me some of that, giggity." That's the old Quagmire I know. That's the old Quagmire I know. Not the current asshole who hates Brian. Peter says that they all agree both Bonnie and Brian are terrible people, so he can finally do his magic trick. Brian then stood up for Bonnie. Bonnie feels no one never cared to ask how she feels. Then they start running away. The runaway couple. Run, you two. Go live a happier life together. Meg and Chris realized that stealing was wrong, especially since Chris put his pipe out of the ashes of a deceased man, thinking it was an ashtray. They take the stuff back and end up being punished. Going back to our runaway couple, they both work at a diner and Brian and Bonnie start arguing. Brian calling her a dumb bitch. Ooh, geez, Brian. And Bonnie goes, "You're such a know-it-all, Brian. You don't even know your own body." Then Brian responds saying, "At least I've had an orgasm." Bonnie slaps the pus out of him. And then Brian realized this isn't them. And he says, "We can make this work. Like the couples on Craigslist." And then they show a running gag or whatever of the two couples that finally meet each other in person on Craigslist. And then they both at the same time talking, saying, "You're not the person that I saw in the picture on Craigslist. Let's just get this over with." Then the one guy's talking about, "I wonder which one of us is the murderer." What? Wow, random. I wonder which one of us is the murderer. You both are murderers. Anyways, Joe finds Bonnie and Brian, and he apologized to Bonnie for being too independent on her. So then they make up by kissing, and then Brian thinks that he's Cupid because he got them back together. And then Joe finally got revenge on him for the last time by shooting Brian. Really, Joe? Don't you think Brian suffered enough? Dewey randomly walks up to Brian, complimenting on his apple pie, and then he notices he's been shot. And that's pretty much it. So anyways, this has been my review on the Family Guy Heartbreak Dog episode. It was a good episode, but I just didn't like the fact that Joe had to get revenge on Brian. And not to mention, shoot him. It's like revenge isn't everything, Joe. What the hell? I don't care if you're a cop. You need to slow your roll and fall back a little bit. I mean, he acts like Brian purposely did this to hurt him. Brian didn't do this on purpose. He didn't do this on purpose to get back at you for revenge or anything. And besides, if he didn't care, he wouldn't have went to your house to apologize. It's not like Brian was like, "Oh, screw Joe. I don't care about him. He deserves it." And it's not like Brian and Bonnie were like, "Hey, Bonnie, let's get revenge on Joe for making your life a living hell." Yeah, you know you'll like it. "Okay, Brian, let's do it for the sake of my happiness." I just thought that was messed up. So anyways, this is it. Tell me your thoughts on the episode, and have a nice weekend. Later.